I was experimenting with a bit of a new angle because I like it. I think it's more flattering for me. I think any angle that looks at me from downwards is not my best angle, which sucks because I'm 6 feet tall. So as you can imagine, that's quite a common angle of people get of me. But anyways, um, I kind of want to just one of my experiences with taking philosophy as one of my majors. If you remember, I'm doing a double major, philosophy and psychology. Is I'm sure everyone knows about the common trope that philosophy is kind of a useless major, in a sense, kind of a bad major with bad career options and everything. So I just kind of want to address that, give my thoughts on it, um, a defense on it. You know, for those of you that might be wanting to take philosophy, but you think that it might not be useful for you. So there is definitely many reasons why philosophy is considered useless, and this has been a problem for a while. Like even one of the first books we read, not the first, but maybe the second, was Plato. Plato's Republic, I believe, is one of his dialogues, specifically his Socratic dialogues, where he mentions philosophy being perceived as useless, um, or at the worst part, bad. And basically, the reasons he gives are the best philosophers, the ones that are actually good philosophers, they're only useless in so much as nobody asks for their help. But if they were to ask for their help, they would be great at giving out help. And he likens it to a ship who the ship's captain is looking up into the stars and looking and observing the wind patterns and um, trying to deduce the seasons and the currents of the sea, um, to figure out the best way to navigate the ship. But all of this is taken as, foolishness by the other sailors. So they don't listen to the ship captain, and rather they just fight amongst themselves trying to deduce who's the best captain. But the captain, if they were to ask him, would be able to provide the best knowledge. So, at best, kind of the best case scenario is that the philosophers are useless. They're considered useless. Plato argues that this is, um, you know, this is because people don't ask them for help. And, because I'm not just going to repeat Plato's points, I'm trying to make this my own channel. I definitely, I do think this is a pretty accurate sentiment in today's society. Um, People have generally just stopped caring about philosophy as much, because we've become so, I'm not even sure what you would call it, so empiricist. So everything is, people expect answers to everything, um, so instantaneously, so at the touch of their hands with social media. And it ruins the sense of wonder that philosophy instills in us, and it doesn't allow us to reflect deeply on the bigger questions, so we don't turn to the people that, can help us wrestle with these bigger questions. Um, and it's just like, it really does, people just consider philosophy useless these days. And there was one quote, I think, this is kind of a little bit off topic, but I'm gonna save it for a different video. That's a different video, but yeah. So basically, yeah, I do think that people just, they don't really like to be able to sit, and this kind of goes into Pascal. This kind of goes into a little bit of Pascal. Pascal's wager, if you know him, he's a philosopher. Blaise Pascal, he's a polymath actually. He's a mathematician, scientist, philosopher. But besides for Pascal's wager, he also theorized that people are not comfortable, and this was actually before phones. Um, but he theorized that people are not comfortable with being able to sit with themselves silently, and just because when you sit silently doing nothing, you're not on your phone, you're not reading or anything. When you sit silently, it prompts you to reflect on deeper questions, and people don't like that. It gives them a sense of existential dread because now you have to ponder about the bigger stuff. What's going to happen when you die? And of course, Pascal is using this in the context of atheism and agnosticism. right? Where people want to remain willingly ignorant of the bigger questions of like death and what's going to happen after your life. But it's still a good point anyhow. People don't like philosophy these days. They just don't want to grapple with these questions because either they may think they don't have the time for it, or they're simply scared of it. Um, and philosophy is scary, and I might make another video on that. Um, it is, but yeah, lost my train of thought. Right, Pascal. People don't like to sit with themselves. There's actually a psychological study that backs this up. You know, they had people sit in a room doing nothing, and they were they were doing nothing, but they had a button there that would administer a shock to themselves. And people were so not wanting to be alone with their thoughts that they'd rather press the button and shock themselves multiple times than just sit there in silence. And that's baffling to me. I'd like to think that I could go hours without pressing the button. I might do it once at the beginning, not at just out of curiosity to see how it feels, but I I like to be alone with my thoughts. Sometimes it gets too much and then I start overthinking and it gets scary, but not in a way that the layperson would be scared to be alone with their thoughts. Theirs is a problem of underthinking. Mine's a problem of overthinking. Is that a certain amount of hubris? Yeah. Am I gonna say that I'm wrong? No. Anyways, so vast majority or the minority of philosophers that actually good philosophers are useless. And then another preconception that Plato talks about is that for the philosophers that aren't useless, the vast majority of them, they're just bad philosophers. Which again, I'm gonna see that reflected in today's society. I'm just connecting it, but so you have people, you know, I have people taking my philosophy class that there's basically I don't know, is it three groups? There's three groups of people, maybe four. There's people like me that I'm good at philosophy and I enjoy philosophy. And sure, maybe that sounds like hubris. If you haven't watched my channel before, you're like, oh, well, why does this guy think he's good at philosophy? You know, I don't know how you would qualify that, but you know, I'm good at grappling with these questions, and I mean, I have good dialogue with my teacher, so there's something. Um, and it's also by a way of comparison, not comparison. Comparison is a thief of joy, but like, you know, you have to compare yourself to something at some point, otherwise you'd never know if you were good or bad. You know, it's like Thomas Aquinas's argument from gradation. But so there's one group of people, me, who enjoy philosophy and are good at philosophy. And there's like maybe like two other kids in that class that would fit that thing. So there you go, good at philosophy. Um, and then this group of people is the one that Plato's referring to. There is people that, quite frankly, they like. It seems like they like doing philosophy, but they're just not good at it. And this is also a well, I guess he's you know this is also technically a minority. It's actually only one person in the class because everyone else in the class is just disinterested. That was the third group of people. I don't know. They're just taking the credit or getting the credit. So, but there are people that try to do philosophy, but they're quite frankly just not good at it. Like this one kid in my class. I mean, he just he has that performative intellectualism. Um, you know, performative, whatever. I know the connotation of that, but he basically, um, you know, I would liken it to he knows the names, like his knowledge is really only surface level. Like he knows the names of a lot of philosophers, but he never really expounds on the ideas or like the arguments from them. And whenever that he's called to answer a question in the class, and philosophy doesn't technically have wrong answers, but like, you know, in this case there are, like we had a reading and a professor asked us something from the reading, and I'll just give like, he'll sound like he's trying to make like a really good answer, but he just gives like a blatantly wrong one. Like, one of the best examples I can think of is we were talking about Thomas Aquinas's five ways, the five arguments for God, and one of the arguments is the nature of or the argument of the efficient cause, and it was so obvious he didn't read the text because he started going on like, yeah, the argument of efficient cause, it's basically just what it sounds like, that the human body is so efficient that of course it like, it and he started talking about some BS, but it just wasn't related at all. The efficient cause, I mean, I guess in some convoluted way it was, but um, he really had to do mental hoops. There's been worse examples, like, the worst examples I can give of is he's really pseudo intellectual. Like at the beginning and end of every class, he'll go up to the professor and say weird stuff like, what would be the Thomas Aquinas view on like Scooby Doo, or um, what would the Descartes view on Breaking Bad be? What would the Saint Augustine view on like, I don't know. I used Scooby already, right? Oh, like Shadow the Hedgehog. He really likes Shadow the Hedgehog. So it's obvious he knows a lot of these philosophers, but he never really has said anything of substance that shows that he actually knows their idea. I liken it to someone that like knows the name of like a lot of old basketball stars, but like doesn't really know. Like I guess he never watched them or something like that. But you know what I'm talking about. You'll know. You can you know make it similar. So there are most of the people that try to take up philosophy, and I've heard other people too. Just like you can tell when someone that's good at philosophy can tell when someone is bad at philosophy. Um, because when they try to talk about it, it's just a whole bunch of mumble jumble. And this is not to say that it's like an experience bias that like no one has done philosophy. This is an important point to make. It's not like is no one that has not done philosophy is bad at philosophy, because like I have friends that like never took a philosophy class or never did a philosophy reading, but if I try to discuss philosophy with them, they can make good conversation and make good arguments. So if they were interested in philosophy, they'd be good philosophers. Not amazing, but like they can make conversation with it. Versus there are some people that you can just tell like they'll never really be able to make, like they just don't have that deeper thinking, you know. Um, like Plato's Republic, there are four qualities that a good philosopher must have. I'm gonna make another video on that though, kind of gonna be like an update to my NPC video. But anyhow, so to kind of recap it all, philosophy today is taken to be useless or bad. People are bad at philosophy. But if you're wondering, I guess this is where we get into the meat of the video. If you're wondering about taking it as a major, um, I'd say highly recommend. I highly recommend it, unless you're going to like some crazy expensive school where you're, I don't know, some crazy private school where you're paying like 90K per year, and philosophy is good, but you're not gonna be able to get a job that pays that much, which is stupid anyways. You shouldn't be going to any school that pays 90K per year. There's genuinely no point. Um, with the oversaturation of college degrees, a bachelor's degree is really not gonna make a difference whichever college it came from. I mean, unless you're comparing it from like, I don't know, backwater Alabama University to like Harvard, it's really not gonna make a difference where you get your bachelor's degree from. But yeah, so if you're considering taking philosophy and you've had experience with it, because if you've dabbled with it before and you're just not good at it, don't take it. But if you've genuinely enjoyed reading about it, 100% I'd recommend it. Maybe make it your minor if you're not fully committed. Take a double major. A double major isn't really that much work, especially if you do like, I don't know, philosophy and theology or philosophy and sociology. You can probably get a lot of overlap. So it's not really that much extra work. But 100% take it. Philosophy really opens up your eyes to a lot. It's kind of like the AP Psych of college majors, I think. It teaches you applicable stuff that you can use everywhere in your life. So, yeah, I guess kind of most of my video was talking about the criticisms of philosophy. So let me put a little more meat about why it's good. It does make you ponder on the bigger questions. And the bigger questions can be scary to grapple and to deal with sometimes, but at the end of the day, pondering about them and thinking about them makes you feel like a more complete person overall. It makes you feel more erudite. It makes you feel more a open. It makes you feel like you're able to see more of the world in a way. Like you have esoteric knowledge not known to anybody else. So, yeah, highly recommend. I mean, I filmed this video because I was really bored and not motivated to go do schoolwork, but I think I'm gonna go do that now, because the chasing of knowledge, the life of knowledge, like Plato says, is the most virtuous one. So, I think I'm gonna go do that now. I just wanted to film this because I didn't want to work, so this got me into that working mindset. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. You know, like and subscribe if you made it this far. For more philosophy talk, I'm gonna try to actually make more philosophical related stuff.